Okay, let's do the 4 limitless contemplations and really do them with your heart. If you don't know them off by heart, it's about time you did. So it's a good exercise burn. May all beings be happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal, impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Sem jen dang je dewa tang dewe ju tang den ba ju je dungal je ju tang tra wa ju chik dungal mepe dewa tampa tang mindra wa ju chik nering jak tang ni tan tra we tang nom chempo la ne pa ju che. So good morning, everybody. I am so pleased to see you all and a whole lot of oldies, not many newies, except I think Tessa was here. I haven't seen her for a long time, and that's nice. If you're still around, Tessa, I can't see you anyway if you are. And today we're going to do a really, what I've called today, so let me get to it, is the point of this life, the essence of the Buddha's teaching. And before I tell you what this is all about, because I've really got beautiful material all round to give all of you this year, but before I do, I just want to say it would be lovely if you can turn your cameras on. I know a few of you can't, having load shedding, and that's fine. But if you can, it's lovely that I can see your response. But I want this year a lot of questioning, a lot of debating. What I want to do is go very slowly with things, so that, because I'm going to do a lot of Tulku Urgent Rinpoche and other masters' great teachings. And I think it's so important. And I think when I whoops through it, there's just too much to digest. So I want you to stop me when there's something you're not sure about or you want to know more. It's very important, because I want an understanding of all that I'm teaching in your daily life. If you can't find it in your daily life and apply it in your daily life, then it hasn't become part of you. And for me, this holiday, it was a long, you can call it a holiday if you like, but I never had 5 minutes of rest. So many people texted me and said, oh, I'm sure you had a wonderful rest. From day one, I never had a rest. But anyway, that's probably my karma of this lifetime. Okay. And the thing is that what I do a lot of when I'm not having rest is I do a lot of pondering. And then I try and take what I'm reading or what I'm learning or what I'm experiencing in my practice and ponder what it means to me. And I kind of came to a conclusion in the end of all these hectic time. I came to a conclusion, that my particular thing in the world is to be a teacher. So I thought, whatever else I do, but I've got to see that I am a proper teacher by the time I leave this life, so that I can give that as an offering. And each of you must find out what your purpose is in life. What are you really here to do? Never mind your material career, your outer career, all of these kind of things, but what are you doing here? Why are you here? That is so important, that you bring it all in together to yourself, so that you're not wasting this incarnation. I'm going to take this computer out of the sun. Otherwise, just now, we're probably going to have a lot of trouble. Now the sun decides to come, and we're probably going to have a lot of trouble. No, don't worry. So what I want to say is that this stuff that I want to give you was absolutely amazing. Okay, it's an overall short history, an overview of the Buddha's teaching. And then Tulku Urgent goes on to the ground. The ground is the essence of your being, and that's what I'm talking about. when you actually understand the ground, the essence of your being, then everything changes in your daily life. It's a really important thing. And I think what we're going to do is, I read this new book of Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche that I did manage to read a little bit during the holidays. It's called The Vajra Heart Revisited. And this book spoke to me through the holidays. It is so deep, it is so profound that I could photocopy the whole book to teach you, because it's really, really, really something that resonates with my being. And he starts off with a short history and overview, and that's what I'm going to give you. And then he goes on to explain what the ground is. But I want you to stop me. It is of no value whatsoever if I give you stuff and you don't apply it in your daily life, or you think very interesting talk, and I want you to apply it. And you, Karen, you've got to really take it, because I know you do a lot of his stuff, and you've got to take it and apply it, all of you, and talk to me. So I'm going to start with just a couple of stories and a couple of things to set the tone for the whole year. The first story I want to give you is called Giving the Moon. So a monk sitting on the veranda of his house was absorbed in the contemplation of the full moon. A thief entered the back of his house and began to search for valuables. The monk heard a noise and went inside to investigate. When he saw what the thief was doing, he said to him, "Oh, let me help you. Let me help you." Okay. And proceeded to load the thief up with valuables. He then showed him out the front door and once again calmly took up his position on the veranda. Looking up at the moon, he said to himself, "I can give you everything I have, but I can't give you the moon." Later that night, some soldiers brought the thief back to the monk's house. They told the monk that they'd caught him in possession of the monk's goods. "He did not steal them," said the monk. "I gave them to him." The soldiers then went away, leaving the thief with the monk. And the monk, leaving the thief, and the thief, amazed at the monk's generosity, put all the goods that he'd stolen down on the floor, sat on the veranda beside him, and looked up in the sky to see what the monk was so absorbed with. "Now," said the monk, "I can give you the moon." Okay, now, I love that story, because put down your fixations, okay? Put down your crap and look at the total view. Look at the total view and you will find it. And there are two little poems next to the story. It came from a cute book, and it goes like this. "Some steal my money, others steal my time." Sorry. "Some steal my money, others steal my time. But if I feel no remorse, they commit no crime." And the other little poem was, "Neither giving nor taking, nothing is gained nor lost. Offering and accepting, everything is worth the cost." So I love those two little rhymes that go back for when he's giving you the moon. And I think that's very important. The other thing I want to tell you, and you'll hear a lot from me, hello Vera, you'll hear a lot from me about it, is that I don't know if you remember at the end of last year, I taught you on Kienzi Choki Lodro, and I taught you a lot from his biography and what he did, and everything was amazing. Anyway, I discovered that the new Choki Lodro, who's called Zongsar Kienzi Rinpoche, is the most divine guy. Okay, he is about 60 now, so the new one's already about 60 years old. He teaches thousands and thousands of people all over the world. So like I was listening to his Heart Sutra he was teaching, and it was translated into about 12 languages. So it went all over the world. That's the level of his teaching. And he is a character. just like the previous Choki Lodo is a character and a modern master. He knows everything that's going on. So I love it. And so you can all follow him on YouTube. He has got so many wonderful modern, talks and things that he gives on YouTube. And his organization's called Siddhartha's Intent. So if you look up on Siddhartha's Intent on YouTube, you'll actually find a lot of his recordings. Anyway, I'm not going to go, you'll hear a lot from me from his recording because I learn a lot from him. So what happened was, this was a conversation he was having with the master Jet Li. And Jet Li was a Kung Fu master, okay, who came from a very poverty-stricken family in China, and his family sent him to learn martial arts because that was a way that they could save themselves in that time. And so he became a martial arts teacher. And so they have a lot of videos of the two of them dialoguing, and it's very, very interesting because Jet Li speaks in China, although he speaks a little bit of English, but what he is a famous film star in China. So you can hear when he comes onto the stage, it's like one of our famous film stars coming on. They love him, and then he talks in Chinese and the woman interprets it. Anyway, I thought some of his things that he said were absolutely amazing. And this is one. Jet Li said, someone asked him in the audience, because he's nearly died a lot of times. So someone asked him in the audience, because he after he became a master, he still took up the teachings of Buddhism. So what happened was, he was in the tsunami in Thailand. You remember that tsunami in Thailand, okay? And that morning, he had decided to take his two daughters to the beach. So what happened on the beach was, the waves started coming up. When the third wave came up, and his little daughter had a carer, when the third wave came up, he could see it was going over his head. And what he could see was that his daughter and the carer were swept out to sea already, okay? And that he was going to, although there were by now rescue operations coming, and he was saved for some amazing reason. And he was asked about his survival. They managed to rescue him. He survived, and so did his two children, that tsunami. But I found it very interesting in the beginning of the year to look at what he said. As that wave came up, he said, there was death. And he said, it's not the first time he's been facing death. And he said, he clearly thought the following. He said, at death, we are all equal, whether we'd had fame, poverty, good or bad life. We face death as equals. The circumstances at that moment don't matter. Death equalizes us. Now, I found this fascinating. Okay, just the conclusion that he came to about it, are we ready for death? If death comes to us tomorrow morning, are we ready? And that's my work this year. I want to take you all so that you can get to the essence of yourselves, and you can change what is in the essence of yourselves to say, this is actually who I am. Melanie is nothing. She's just a charade, a drama, someone going through all sorts of things, running here, running there, doing everything. That's not who you are. That's just the temporary, transient things that we go through in our lives. It's nothing, no thing. And so when he said that death equalizes us, I want you all to ponder that, because it means at death, whatever you've suffered doesn't even make a difference. It may make a difference to if you're still going to be catapulted into other lives, but it doesn't make any difference. So the most important thing, if you're getting old like me, and some of you aren't, is that you've got to actually think, what when death equalizes me, what have I got? I was thinking about that so clearly in Australia, because all my family in Australia, and there are lots of them, they were always pointing a finger at me, including my husband, you this and you that, and you this and you that. And I've said a few times, that's not who I am, that's just your perception of me. Now, when we do this history and overview of what the Buddha generously gave, I want you to think of that. I don't know if anybody wants to say anything. I'm very happy if you do, because it's really, really important, this. Anybody want to say anything? Please do.
Oh, hello and welcome back. It probably seems awfully trivial, but your subject matter couldn't have come at a better time for me, because what I've been pondering quite a bit over the last few months is, what the hell am I doing here? Does it matter? Do I care? Does anybody else care? I don't know whether one defines it as an existential crisis, but it's just what's it all about, Alfie, and I've really, that's been on my mind an awful lot. So this is really perfect timing, and for which I thank you.
Yeah. And you know what? For me, it was so important. After Australia, I had visitors and visitors and visitors and visitors. And then I went off to Australia. I managed to meet my little Australian group. We had such a lovely time that day, and all of you treated me with such respect and everything when I came, compared to how everyone else treated me. It felt good, and it felt really inspiring to me. But the bottom line is, so many times those fingers were pointed, and my husband said to me, you just love your Buddhism. That's all you love. So I said, but it's true what you say. But if you love your Buddhism, you love all the people that are around you, and you really want to do well for them. Okay. So even though I get that you all want me to be something else, your Buddhism should actually make you more compassionate, more towards the karma that you have. And it's really, really important, because so many times my daughter, once we were in the shops with her teenage daughter, 16, that's her youngest one, and looking through Zara and all the tops at Zara, which completely disinterested me fully, but there I was. And so I was very tired. So I went to sit on the step on the side. I'm just sitting on the step, not saying a word. So she came and said, Ma, you really don't enjoy your life, do you? And I said, you know what? You don't have a right to judge me about that. I may not enjoy the same things as you, but my life I enjoy and make the most of. And why are you picking on me? I'm sitting on the step. What am I doing? I'm not saying a word, But I can see clearly that what your children want is, they want you to be your version of the mother that they want, or your version of the grandmother you want, not who you are. And this is so important when we do the history, to see, what did the Buddha say? Well, while I've gone off the subject a bit, let me go to what happened to me. Was that when I came back and I was exhausted and I'd been sick a lot, which is not like me, but I had a lot of sick. I think I had long COVID, but in any case, I think I've still got it. But in any event, I'd really been sick and everything. And I came home, I felt exhausted, jet lagged, tired of everyone pointing their fingers at me. And I decided to get hold of Lama Yeshe Rinpoche, okay? And he's wonderful to me, I've got to say, because if I ask for time with him, if I ask for a conversation, he gives it the same day. Anyway, so there I am. So I'm telling him my stories of woe. I'm so tired. He, by the way, isn't well at all. So we first spoke about his health. He's not well at all. He's not managing to do that much physically, but he is... but his mind, is crystal clear. As Annie Lama said to me when I spoke to her afterwards, she said, he just looks at you and he just hones into you. And when you get that statement from him, your whole world turns around. Anyway, so I was moaning much better once we'd spoken about his and I said, oh, I don't like it in Australia. Sorry to you Australians. And I said, and my husband's fighting with me and everybody's dissatisfied with me. And I just want to be left alone to do my spiritual practice. And I really thought his answer was going to be, you, Melanie, you go and do everything you have to do with your karma, which he usually says to me. And he just sat quietly. And then he said to me, oh, I see you have renounced samsara. He said, and I am well pleased about that. He said, because when you finish this life, you are ready for Guru Rinpoche's work once you have renounced samsara. Now, I can't tell you what happened, what transaction happened between us. I can't tell you. All I know is that the next morning, I felt amazing. I felt regenerated and I felt amazing. And I want to say to all of you, renouncing samsara does not mean that you give up your life and your responsibilities and your karmic responsibilities. It means in your mind, you see everything as it is. Now, when the Buddha taught, he taught in layers and sections like that. And as you go up, he taught those that want to fly over and get to the top end. And that's what we're doing with our life. Now, this year, I'm going to give you this, what I can, completely and totally. I've got tons and tons and tons of material to give you, beautiful stuff, but I want you to make it personal. And I want you to take it and I want you to use it in every way for what you need to do with your life. Anyone want to comment? Or you just
I want to comment.
Please.
You know, I was thinking about what Diana said, and she's looking quite bleak. And there is a huge purpose to this life, Diana.
Mhm.
You are getting ready to move on to better things. And you've got to actually get that into your head, because all this practice that we do is preparing you for what you need. Because once you don't want to be reborn in samsara, you want to go to the Pure Lands and you want to actually have a perfect life. And you can, it's possible. You've just, everybody feels bleak at times and everybody feels useless, but you know what? It's part of your journey and you'll get through it.
It is part of your journey, and I don't think that Diana was feeling so bleak as much as saying, I need to ponder the purpose of my life. And you know what, Gail? When you see how these teachings work, what Tulku Urchin, the pearls that he has offered us, in the ground, the path, and the fruition. I'm going to come to that because it's all in the history. But when you see what he has offered us, the path is where you purify what you've made, the messes you've made. But the ground was always perfect, and the fruition is always perfect. And so we need to undertake the path for one reason. Oh, okay, Lebo, sorry, you have to go. We need to undertake what we need to undertake in order to purify that habit momentum. It's so important because the habit momentum keeps taking us. When I think of Jet Li's child and caregiver being swept out to sea, our habit momentum sweep us out to sea very quickly. And we've got to be fully aware and in touch with what we've got to do with our lives and how we go about our lives. It's really, really important. So thank you for that, you two. It's important. So I just want to give you one more little story while we're here, and then I'll give you the quote later. But there's one little story. Some of you may have heard it. It's a Thich Nhat Hanh story. I'm sorry that Lebo's gone away because she's a Thich Nhat Hanh girl. But anyway, he said, in The Stranger, the book The Stranger, Albert Camus tells us about a man named Meursault who is in prison. In his cell one day, Meursault was able to touch life. Lying flat on his back, he looked up, and through the small window near the ceiling, he saw the blue sky for the first time in his life. How could a grown man see the blue sky for the first time? In fact, many people live like that, imprisoned in the anger, frustration, or belief that happiness and peace are only in the future. Meursault had 3 days to live before his execution. In that moment of awareness, the sky was really there, and he was able to touch it. He saw that life had meaning, and he began living deeply the moments that were left for him. The last 3 days of his life became his true life. On the last day, a priest knocked at his cell door to extract a confession from him, but Meursault refused. Finally, the priest left frustrated. At that moment, Meursault described the priest as someone who lives like a dead person. Il vit comme un mort, like a dead person. Meursault realized that it was the priest who needed to be saved, not him. If we look around, says Thich Nhat Hanh, we see many people who are like dead persons, carrying their own dead bodies on their shoulders. We need to do whatever we can to help them. They need to be touched by something, the blue sky, the eyes of a child, an autumn leaf, so they can wake up and liberate themselves. Now, I think that's very similar to Jet Li's story, and it's really, really important. So we're going to do a meditation in a few minutes, but I want to just give you the beginning to look at the whole idea of Samantabhadra. Now, what is Samantabhadra? And I'm going to give you, in the history that Tulku Urgent gives, I'm going to give you real explanations of Samantabhadra. But if we look at Samantabhadra, Samantabhadra is Rigpa. And what is Rigpa? Rigpa is the unconstructed, empty cognizance present in samsara and nirvana, both of them. The main reasons why sentient beings can awaken is because no one is without Buddha nature. So if you want to use similes, Samantabhadra, Buddha nature, unobstructed, empty cognizance, whatever you want to call them, Buddha nature, it's the same thing. And because of Buddha nature, we have the chance to awaken. And so in his book, The Vajra Heart Revisited, Tulku Urgent Rinpoche's wonderful style of a road map, okay, a road map to make us discover our true natures and to every possible way of turning ourselves inside out to realize that Buddha nature. It's built on an earlier restricted book, which was called Vajra Heart, and it covers every topic for the Dzogchen practice of Trekcho. What is Trekcho? Trekcho means to recognize that your own essence is primordial purity. That's what Trekcho is. So all the things, all the techniques and practices that are given to you is to recognize your own primordial essence. And his whole book covers all of this. And then once we recognize that essence, we suddenly realize, oh my goodness, the essence expresses itself as spontaneous presence. So Everything you see in the world is spontaneous presence, whether you see it impurely or purely. It comes out of the essence in a natural way. And we're going to look at, when we look at the spontaneous presence, how do we change ourselves to see it in a pure way rather than an impure way? It's so important. Okay. And this book was, of course, my main companion. I felt as though Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche was talking to me all the time, and I was listening to him teaching me even in my sleep state. As Marcia Binder-Schmidt, who gave this presentation of this book, she said in her foreword, Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche had confidence and utterly pure trust based on his personal understanding that Buddha nature is present in every sentient being. His whole life was about telling you, Buddha nature is present in you. Buddha nature is present in you. Think about it, ponder it. You can really, really, really change if you know that Buddha nature is inside you when you're going through real down, depressing times, when you're being persecuted, when you're being hammered, when you're being everything. Buddha nature knows better. You just ponder. But this nature of mine is not affected by all these things around me. It's actually the only way. How else could you possibly go through life and not get depressed and not get put out? That's the only way. I realized that so much. You know, when I was in Australia, and you Australians can actually verify it or not verify it, but I realized the whole life in Australia, as I saw it, my perception, was very externally based. Not that our lives here are not externally based, but it's very externally based on how you are, who you are, what you do, whether you obey the rules or not. I found so often in conversations with people, there were so few people that really offered something that my ears pricked up. It doesn't have to be spiritual, but just a deep meaning of life. You know, I think sometimes in that country, they're so obsessed with the laws and all the laws. And my husband said, well, that's why it runs correctly. And I said to him, but you know, there are other things other than the laws. You're right, it does run correctly, but there's an inner part of you. There's an inner part of you that feels. There's an inner part of you, Maitri, that relates in a most unbelievable. When I came home and I put my passport on the wrong part of the desk, and the passport officer said, Aish. I thought, I'm home. Aish, I'm home. I mean, it felt like, you know, you could tell people, I don't like what you're doing. Aish, you know, or something like that. It's full of life, full of everything. I honestly, not that I'm saying it's a bad place to live in. I'm just talking about me not wanting that outer life very much anymore. If you left me at home for the rest of my life, I would be perfectly happy. I don't need to run all over the world and do things. I would be perfectly happy studying, meditating, doing my practice. It gives me more than enough. So I just want to give you a quick little history of, I'm starting at the end of Tulku Urgyen's history.
Well,
Yes, yes.
can I interrupt, please?
You absolutely may.
Okay, thank you. I'm just like lost somewhere. You say we are Samantabhadra, and I
Yes.
get that.
Okay.
In that instance, because it's something I've never like really thought of before.
Okay.
He represents the Dharmakaya.
Absolutely.
Now,
And the
when
nature.
we are Buddha nature and it's habitual, it's become ingrained in us, it's second nature.
Okay.
Are we then Dharmakaya, not needing, let's say, the Sambhogakaya, or not even necessarily a Nirmanakaya.
It's a good question what you're asking. And this question is fully answered in the history. So we're going to get to this question completely, but it's a very important question, because if Samantabhadra is the Dharmakaya and the Buddha nature and the pure unawakened, cognizance, if it's all of those things, and I'll come to give you his absolute analysis of Samantabhadra soon. But if Samantabhadra is that, and we are Samantabhadra, then are we Dharmakaya? And where does the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya fit in? Now, it's a very interesting question, because the Dharmakaya does exist in its own right. But if there wasn't the Sambhogakaya and there wasn't the Nirmanakaya, which we have to embody, and we'll talk about it in the history, if there wasn't that, then there'd be no expression of the Dharmakaya. Because what would happen is you just have clear, awakened space. And what would the point of clear, awakened space be? There wouldn't be much of a point, because clear, awakened space must produce, must create the Sambhogakaya level of what it needs to do. So the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya are part of the Dharmakaya, but we can't say, if I say to you now, listen, I'm going into my shrine room and I am going to just become the Dharmakaya, and I'm not going to give way and give any benefit to anyone, then I haven't done anything. So it's really important to see that even though the level of creation going right into samsara is different to the Dharmakaya, it's part of it, and yet it's essential. Hold on to that for when we come to do it with Tulku Urgent, okay? Because he does it so beautifully, I promise you. Is that okay, Corin?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so what I want to say is, I'm starting his history at the end, and then we'll meditate. So what he says is, your unfabricated, not made up, present wakefulness is the original ground, okay, the original ground. And he says you can call that Samantabhadra. Even though some of you say, but I've seen pictures of Samantabhadra, we'll come to that too. But Samantabhadra is the same as your unfabricated present wakefulness. And he says, we forget about it. We become distracted. And then what cannot be lost seems lost. He says we go through all the different troubles, the sufferings of the 18 hells, while we still have this essence, but we still go through the suffering of the 18 hells. He says, we are like a trader who's really done bad business. Okay, we've done bad business and gone broke. He says some traders begin with big capital and lose more and more and more until finally they don't even have a single cup. He says that's the same as continually wasting Buddha nature, wasting it. We must slowly reinvest in it the right way. And he says, we do clever business deals. I love his analogy. We do clever business deals. When we really do good business, then we get the state of Samantabhadra back into our own hands. This is called achieving true profit. I love it because we can relate to it in this world. And he says, otherwise, while already having Samantabhadra, we have one loss after another until the basic capital shrinks down to only 1 rupee, gives 1 rupee. We could say 1 rand, $1. That's all we've got left. He says, if we keep the 1 rupee and reinvest it in our business, it can increase more and more until we finally regain ownership of Samantabhadra. Right now, we are Samantabhadra down to his last rupee. Slowly, we have to take ownership of the most valuable thing in the world. We win. The 18 hells lose. We need to gain such profits. Most people, he says, go into a dark period with deep sighs when they make bad investments. We've thrown away Samantabhadra by not knowing. If we can now do proper business, we can transcend the realms of samsara and step beyond the 3 realms of samsara. And he says, this is what the Buddha taught. Why do so few listen and continue suffering? Why don't we invest? Why do we just get so despondent when everything in our lives is our own creation? Nothing in our lives is for nothing. It's our own creation. So we've got to be positive about it and really get Samantabhadra going again in our beings. Now let's do a little meditation for you to think of. Are you seeing me nicely? Because I've got this computer held outside of the sun, which wasn't supposed to be there. So I'm kind of facing sideways. Is it okay? Okay. So everybody, let's do a meditation. Trying to hold so many things. It's unbelievable. Okay. So I want to, we're going to do a meditation from Keith Dowman called Gaze at the Freshness. So I want you to just take his stuff and put it in your head, and then we'll start with the breath since it is the beginning of a year. But to put gazing at the freshness in a nutshell, whatever the quality of the view we have, no matter whether we are happy or sad, whether appearances are fearful or pleasant, regarding of whether mind is active or passive, our mind is not tilting towards any antidote, nothing. Whatever appears, we look nakedly at its essence as it arises, because everything we see has that ground, that essence. And without modifying it in any way, it is as it is. Pure presence in all its radiance is arising from within. Dajjam Rinpoche says, whatever the sensory field, whatever the object, we are gazing at it like a child enwrapped before an altar in the temple. We are not clutching at the sensory specifics. We hold to the freshness. We let it be in its own place, without contriving, without sorting, without analyzing, without conceptualizing anything about it. We don't want to change its shape, its complexion, or adulterate it with any conceptual fiction. Even if it's something quite ugly, don't change it. All appearances are arising as the naked primal awareness of clarity and emptiness in pure presence. So breathe in and breathe out, taking in the essence of what is all around us and within us. As you breathe in, I want you to feel yourself taking in new life. As you breathe out, I want you to feel your breathing out all your grasping, all your fixations, all your holding on, all your trying to solve everything. Leave it. Let it go out of your fingers. Let it be. And then breathe in again the new essence. And breathe out the grasping and fixating. In and out. The past is gone. The future is not yet. The present is not something we hold on to. It's something we just give birth to without holding anything. So let everything be. Gaze at the freshness of the new perception. Keep your breathing. And as soon as you go back to individual momentums, let them go immediately. Come back to the breath. Breathing in and out. So freshly. No, dearest Jay, even though you're joining us at the end, it's fine. What I want to say to all of you is please practice a lot. Just sitting, but don't trouble yourselves with the meditation. You can go back and get my talks that I gave last year on non-meditation, pondering. I know, Di, you looked at them a lot, but you can go back on those, have them in front of you so that you can really look at them and see what they're all about, because it's really important that you don't struggle with your meditation, that you actually say to yourself, I just want to sit and be. Am I able to sit and be and just allow everything, like an old man watching everything walk by, and know that everything that I see, everything that I think, everything that I feel just comes from the essence. So why am I so uptight? Go back to what Jet Li said at death. We're all equal. It's very important to understand that and allow that. I just want to read you Kalu Rinpoche, what he said about the Karmapa, which was really interesting, because the Karmapa is an example of someone who really, 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 found enlightenment, the 16th Karmapa at the end of his life. Kalu Rinpoche really writes what honestly happened with him. And isn't this what we all want? It's so important. So what he writes there, which is so interesting, is that he says a long time ago, Yeshe Tsogyal asked Guru Padmasambhava what could be done to help beings in the dark ages she foresaw. What could be done to alleviate their miseries in the time of the kalpa of great conflict, the kalpa of weapons? We really are in the kalpa of weapons. If you look in America, it's a kalpa of weapons, okay? I mean, people just shooting all the time. Why would people kill to resolve their problems? And then they go on and on and on in the hell realms of their mind. I mean, you just look at the kalpa of weapons and the kalpa of famine. If you just look in places like Somalia, the moment in Afghanistan, in all these places in our own country, the famine is beyond. It's all our group karma that we've created. And so Padmasambhava answered, which I found so fascinating, in order to help eliminate intense sufferings in that dark time, make supplications to one who is now one of my 25 foremost disciples, and who in the future will bear the name Karmapa. Isn't that interesting? He says, sincere supplications and devotions to that being will bring about harmony. Now, this is what he writes. In 1981, I was present during the Jalwa Karmapa's last illness, and I believe that what I saw then was a fulfillment of Guru Rinpoche's prophecy. By the time I saw him, His Holiness had already had many operations, some of his parts of his body removed, things put inside him, his blood transfused, and so on. Every day, the doctors discovered the symptoms of some new disease, only to find them gone the next day and replaced by another illness, as if all diseases in the world were finding room in his flesh. For 2 months, he had taken no solid food, and finally his doctors gave up hope. It was impossible for him to live, and the doctors thought the life support system should be disconnected. But the Karmapa said, no, I'm going to live. Leave them in place. And he did live, astonishing the doctors and remaining seemingly at ease in his situation, says Kalu Rinpoche. Humorous, playful, smiling, as if he were rejoicing at everything his body suffered. Then I thought, with the clearest possible conviction, that the Karmapa had submitted to all this cutting, to the manifestation of all those diseases in his body, to the lack of food, in quite an intentional and voluntary way. He was deliberately suffering all of these diseases to help minimize the coming pains of war, disease, and famine. And in this way, he was deliberately working to avert those terrible kalpas. For those of us present, his death was an unforgettable inspiration. It profoundly revealed the efficacy of the Dharma and the fact that enlightenment for the sake of others can actually be achieved. How's that? Isn't that something really deep to think about? I think your silence is because it is staggering, because I have heard quite a few people talking about his death, and it is the most amazing, amazing death, where clearly, if you look at Guru Rinpoche's prophecy, he took on everything for all of us. But one person taking it on, unfortunately, isn't enough to get rid of it, is it? Anyone want to comment? Please do butt in whenever you want. I know that what I'm saying is really deep and it touches something. So I'm believing, looking at your faces, that the silence is because what is there to say after that? You know, I think these masters have come. When I look at Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, the thousands of people that he's getting the Dharma to in this modern way. God, I'm so in awe. I can't begin to tell you. I just look, and he makes jokes, and he puts it into such an amazing way. And I find it absolutely fascinating that, you know, that these modern masters have come back. They never had to come back. They went into parinirvana when they went into their state. But now they're back in a body, going through everything for us. It's amazing, don't you think so? I've got these two little ones in my shrine room so I can watch their faces as well. Evelyn and Patricia. Anyone want to say? So can I go on to the history and overview? Because I'm really going into Tulku's stuff. And stop me at any level. I don't care if we do one paragraph a session, doesn't make the least amount of difference to me. I just want to know that it makes a difference to you. If these talks don't make a difference to you, then you have got to ask yourself, or you've got to ask me what you want for it to make a difference to you. Because I feel in my heart and soul that I've got to go even more this year to bring this Dharma to people, more so because there's no other way to be, because I can't see another solution. Every single day, I ask those, especially those Dzogchen masters of a great perfection, I ask them, and I ask the medicine Buddha, please take these ugly, ugly beings that are only interested in their own egos and what they do, and not interested in what they're doing to people like Xi Jinping and Putin and the Iranian Ayatollahs and the Taliban with their extreme things. They don't care what they do. And I just put my hands over my eyes because I think of how many eons it's going to take these people to come out of that. Not because they can't come out of it in 1 minute with their Buddha nature, but because how long is it going to take them to realize what they've done? So anyway, the purpose of giving the history and overview of Buddha's teaching, the sun comes and goes, okay, is so that with great joy, we can slowly begin to realize the treasures that the Buddha left us. Right now, this is totally available to us. Each day, I am so astounded at how much teaching is available, especially with technology. And I'm really, really grateful. I know you girls went to Ringu Tulku's lecture. That's so divine that it happened in Australia. And can I tell you a little secret? That Zongsa Kienzi Rinpoche, for you, dear Robin. No, Robin's not in Melbourne. Are you in Melbourne, Rob? But, you know, his center's in Melbourne. I think you can go and find him. I think he's absolutely amazing. He did so much work in Australia. I couldn't believe it. And his main original center, I think, was in Melbourne. Rob, you go and find out. Okay, just Google it and find out, because it's really amazing where they're going. So, how Tulku Urgent taught was like this. The Buddhist tradition, stop me if you want anything, consists of 9 vehicles. So you can take any of the 9 vehicles when you go. 3 taught by the Nirmanakaya Buddha, dear Karen. 3 taught by the Nirmanakaya Buddha. 3 vehicles taught by the Sambhogakaya Buddha. And 3 vehicles taught by the Dharmakaya Buddha, who we said you can even call Samantabhadra. Now, the 3 vehicles taught by the Nirmanakaya Buddha are geared for those on that Shravakayana, or that very beginning, the Hinayana beginning levels that the Buddha taught, where he started with the 4 noble truths and everything. So they're called Shravakas. They attain Arhat state, but it's not for the sake of all beings, it's for their own state. And then from there, they need to work their way up The Pratyeka Buddhas, they're called the loners. They go off into the mountain, and their main practice is around the 12 interdependent links that we've done of the wheel of life. So they go back and forward through it to really understand what their life is, and they can attain that level. This is a history for all of you. Then you know where you can choose, where you can go, wherever you fit in. I'm going to give you the top level of teaching that Tulku Urgyen gave. But if you want to go back and do the beginner level teaching, you're really, really welcome, and I will help you as much as I possibly can. So the three vehicles taught by the Sambhogakaya Buddha, and this is where, Karen, it's so interesting that all are needed, okay, are called Kriya Tantra, Upatantra, and Yoga Tantra. Those are the three outer tantras that are taught in the great perfection. So the Sambhogakaya Buddha, he had to go to that level to teach those three. And those three are very interesting. And if you want more stuff on them, I can always give you. I've got lots of material on them. But right now, I just want you to know the overall view, which is what this is, a history and overview. The three vehicles taught by the Dharmakaya Buddha are called Maha Yoga, Anu Yoga, and Ati Yoga, which is the Dzogchen. Now, clearly, Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche's stuff, and I love his stuff. I love the way he teaches. I love his patience. I love his giving us everything in such wonderful form so that we can understand what we're doing with Buddhism, you know. Otherwise, we don't have a clue. We just take off wherever we came in. We haven't been brought up with this from childhood, like a lot of the lamas and the people overseas are. Okay. So within the Ati Yoga, right at the top, there are subdivisions, okay? And then you can choose how you go through them. If you do go through them, you've got to have a master to teach you. But even if you master some of the theory now, you'll find a master maybe later in this life, or maybe in the next life. You'll just be able to jump to it, because they have the outer mind section, the inner space section, and the secret instruction section, which really has the keys to your Buddha nature. When the Buddha taught in his Nirmanakaya state to all those people that I'm talking about, the Shravakas, the Pratyeka Buddhas, and all of that, when he taught to them, he actually taught them in that particular level so that they could actually understand all of that. And he taught them slowly. It's so important that you understand that in his teaching, the 84,000 teachings plus multiplied, there's everything for everybody. And it's not the teaching that we're hanging on to. The teaching and the path and the practice is only the one way to purify that path. So when you clean up that path, you use one of the practices to get there. So he says, there's a fourth subdivision in the Ati Yoga, and he says called the innermost unexcelled section, or the innermost heart essence. Now, this is so important that it's even available to us, because the heart essence is what you are. It's not about something tangible outside. The heart essence is exactly what you are. Ask me if you want me to stop at any point. And so those are the special Dzogchen or Ati Yoga teachings that were given. And that's what Tulku Urgyen really teaches. And he goes on and on and on, finding all these little ways, like Samanta Bhadra in business with 1 rupee left, those kind of things. He just finds a way, and then he tells it again, and then he tells it again. And I'm so inspired by him. I really am. So it is said that the ultimate view of the teachings given by the Nirmanakaya Buddha is the view of the middle way. In summary, it's called the view of the middle way. the ultimate view given, this is according to Tulku Urgent, you can disagree with it if you want. The ultimate view given by the Sambhogakaya Buddha is called Mahamudra. Okay, a lot of you have done Mahamudra teaching. And the ultimate view given by the Dharmakaya Buddha is called Dzogchen or Ati Yoga. And so in this way, although Buddha Shakyamuni had of course realized the nature of all the 9 vehicles, in his capacity as a Nirmanakaya, he publicly gave teachings only that were appropriate for the Svavakas, the Pratyeka Buddhas, and the Bodhisattvas. So he gave a lot of sutra teaching. He didn't give the Dzogchen teachings. And what he said, which was so interesting, is that these Dzogchen teachings, the tantric teachings, I will send an emanation of mine to give them to you on the planet. And that was Guru Rinpoche, was an emanation of that whole Buddha era, of our Buddha era. And so he did. But publicly, he taught on the lower vehicles. Privately, he obviously taught higher vehicles and then sent these teachings so that we could get there. And it's up to you. Tell me what you feel about this, because I want you to ponder all this just the way it fits. It's all dependent on where we come in. If we have never done any teaching before in this life, okay, then it's impossible to understand those higher vehicles. I came into the Buddha Dharma and I just plummeted into the deep end. There was absolutely no way that I could do it any other way. The minute I set foot in the Buddha teachings, I wasn't not interested. You can't not be interested, but I needed to go flying already from the day that I entered the teachings. And that was my particular thing. And then as I went further and further on the path, I realized that I knew this before from a previous life. And it was very interesting because when Taisitu Rinpoche, when I said to him, Taisitu, would you help me to gain the rainbow body? Okay, such a cheek when I look at it. I don't even know how I said it to him, but I did. I said, could you help me to gain the rainbow body? He said, why gain the rainbow body if you can just come back into a real Buddhist family and study for 14 years at a Buddhist university and everything? And I went like this with my hand. No, Rinpoche, no. He said, why are you refusing that? I said, no, Rinpoche, you don't understand. I can't study anymore. I've got to fly. I've got to just go and do Guru Rinpoche's work and fly. Okay, such a cheek when I look back on what I said. I mean, such an impudence. You have to have actual guts to have an impudence like that. But that's what I really felt, and I still feel that. But what I've realized is now, pondering death and thinking of the end of my life, I'm thinking, well, if I have to come back in a Buddhist family and learn like that and then study for 14 years and do about 20 years of retreat and then teach, well, so be it, you know. But for me, I just want to go back to Guru Rinpoche, and I just want to come back as a teacher in a fresh body that isn't tired anymore. That's my life. You know, that's what I feel. So it's really up to you. But in the name Dzogchen, or great perfection, I want you to listen to these 2 sentences very carefully, and then I won't go on today. The meaning, all the lower vehicles are actually completed or perfected within these teachings. The meaning of the word Zog, D-Z-O-G, perfection or completion, is explained thus in the Kunji Jalpo Tantra, a very important Tantra. This is what it says. You can debate this with me. Complete as one, dash, Everything is complete in the mind. Complete, the next sentence, complete as two, everything of samsara and nirvana is complete within this. What does it mean? Such an interesting thing. Complete is one, everything is complete within the mind. Complete is two, everything of samsara and nirvana is complete within this. What does it mean? Mimi, come on, I haven't heard your little voice. What does it mean, Mimi? Karen, I'm so glad to see you, even if I can't see your face. What does it mean? Luce, Bern, Betty, Denny, come on, Gail. I can't get any of them to say what they think it means. Tatiana, Nicola, Jade, come on. Molly, Linda.
Does it mean that we've already got it within us? We just have to realize that.
Thank you. The samsara and the nirvana are the same thing. All we're doing is striving to get away from samsara, go to Pure Lands, go to nirvana. You don't need either. Those are just expressions of who we are. Complete as one means everything is the same. There's no duality in this world. There's no me and you. You know, I often feel these sort of things. Sometimes I'm counseling somebody and they're weeping and they've got such horrific circumstances. And part of me is weeping, really, part of me is weeping, but not enough. Because I'm still seeing them as there and me as here. When there is complete as one, the mistake you make is my mistake. The pain you feel is my pain. There's no separation. There's no separation in the whole world because it's all one. We just took it. And then we said, I like this. I don't like this. I'm grasping on what I like. I'm pushing away what I don't like. We've been doing this for so long. We can't find that essence. And you know, when I look at Lama Yeshe Rinpoche, where he is now, you know, when I used to speak to him in the past, he spoke a lot. He really spoke a lot. Now, he just says very, very few words. And Annie Lamo says, Melanie, his mind is so crystal clear. What he's done is, doesn't even care about his body, because I keep saying to him, how are you? How are you managing? Because I know he's got to go on a bike and he's got to go with a walker, and he really can hardly walk. And the doctor says, you're not going to South Africa. He wants to come back. He's very distressed. He wants to come back and build that center in Kensington. But you know what is what's amazing, sorry, let me just get this right. What's amazing is that Annie Lamo says his mind is crystal clear. Now, when I say to him, how are you? He says, if my mind is good, then I'm good. And that's it. And you know, our minds are not good. My husband says, I complain such a lot. I think I do complain a lot when I'm pushed into doing samsaric things from morning till night. I think I do complain a lot. But he says, you complain a lot. I must stop myself. I mustn't complain, because what am I complaining about? I've got the shrine room. I've got all of you that I can pour whatever little rubbish I can find in my own head. I can pour it into you. I've got everything. So isn't that very, very important? So maybe this is a very good point for us to leave, because I haven't gone into much of the history. There's a lot to do, and then the ground, but I'm not in a rush. Are you?
Mm-mm.
you in a rush? Is it okay if we do it very slowly and I give examples and all of that kind of thing? Because to rush through this is to really miss the point, you know. I think that you've got to take it in, and I'm very happy to take in your commentaries on WhatsApp. If you want to write me something, I can always give you an audio back on WhatsApp. But what you ponder afterwards is so important, because we've got to stop wanting this and not wanting this, and wanting to do this and not wanting to do that. We've got to just let it be. We are perfect in the situation we are in right now. Am I being a bit emphatic? Because I feel it so, no, I feel it so strongly. I feel I can't waste my time unless I can really, really, really do what I want to do. And to just say to all of you that Eckhard was supposed to be here, because Eckhard's now moved into the Randburg Center, for those of you that are in Johannesburg, and he's going to be doing the prayers every single morning and evening, and a lot of meditation and a lot of stuff. And those of you that really want to go and do it with him or with other groups of people, it's going to be available, and I will get you the timetable of what he's going to do. But you know, he keeps saying to me to come, and I go, no, 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 my groups are very different because they have a lot of overseas people and things like that. So I think I must just stay where I am in my little shrine room and carry on like I am. It's much easier for me, you know, much, much easier for me, and doesn't require as much energy as going to the center. But I want that center to be inhabited. And it really, really, people need to go there. The opportunities are there and it's open to you, and you really need to build it up, which is very important. I'm sure Karen will agree with me. But let's leave now. I'll stay if anybody wants to ask me anything. But let's just dedicate to all sentient beings. What are we asking for? That the people in famine wake up, that the people being killed in wars wake up, that the people who are suffering illnesses wake up. We dedicate to all these beings, these sentient beings, because the most important thing is not what they're going through. They are their own creators, sometimes in groups of what they're going through, but for everybody to wake up. And I'll stay a little bit afterwards, but let's end this session. So for all sentient beings, may they really achieve that reality, that wake up and everything else. Sonam die tamje zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene jegana jibala tropaye sipe sole duadru warsho.